So this week we have a couple of updates. We're recording today our third podcast episode, but we do have some news. We have a new host.
Right. The only issue is that we didn't tell the other host about it.
Just a little worried about that.
I've been called for a meeting. Something just happened. I don't know. I'm going to be told today. I'm scared, but also excited.
Joseph, nice. You are amazing. So one thing I want to talk to you about is that, you're doing great with the episodes, 200 views and more upcoming.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting a new co-host. I know, very random, but I think you'll like her. Her name is Alicia. She's on her way here. She's somewhere over there. And just remember you're doing a great job and you are amazing.
They just hired another co-host. I had all these big plans. I had the motion. I had the views. I had the directors on my side. Now I have to share the spotlight. Do you want to share the spotlight?
Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm excited to be here.
Hey, Joseph.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you doing?
Good, everything is good.
Good. I just want to introduce you, as he might have mentioned to you, that you have a new co-host. This
Hi.
is
Hi,
Alicia.
Joseph.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna leave you guys to it. I brought some donuts so you guys can have some conversation going before the episode.
Yeah.
We'll be rolling in like 20 minutes or so. Just get to know each other, okay?
Okay. All right.
Exciting.
You got it, boss.
All right. I'll see you guys.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi. Alicia, right?
Yes, Joseph.
Yes.
Nice to meet you. I hope you enjoy the donuts.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. I love donuts.
So we had some on the way here.
You did? Yeah, they did. Okay. Look, there's a donut. Yeah.
It was really good. You'll enjoy it.
I'll enjoy it. I'll have it later.
Okay, yeah.
After the episode.
As like a little treat.
Exactly.
It was so nice to meet you.
You too, all right?
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. All right. I have a new co-host. My boss just informed me that we're adding someone to the show. Why? I don't know. But I guess that's the way that he wants to move forward. So as a host, I must respect and just keep moving.
That went amazing. Can I leave now?
Not yet. Sorry.
Shoot.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Amazing podcast, the show where we dive deep into the world of marketing, answering all your burning questions about student life, entrepreneurship, and everything else in between. I am your host, Joseph.
And I'm your host, Alicia.
And we are so glad to have all of you with us today. So on today's episode, we have the pleasure to interview one of Baruch's marketing professors. He is not only accredited from this university, but his experience talks for himself, all right? So today we are introducing Professor Didia. Thank you for being here with us. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. It's a Friday morning. How else could I feel except great?
It's a great way to describe it. So Professor Didia, can you please elaborate more about yourself to the audience and everyone at home?
Okay, so I teach at Baruch. I teach supply chain management and the BPL class, which is the capstone corporate strategy class. Previous to this, I was in another CUNY school where I taught intro to business, marketing, organizational behavior, fashion promotion. My career started in the fashion industry. I worked for Lord & Taylor, Guess Jeans, Polo, in all sorts of marketing, corporate strategy, supply chain areas. I was in e-commerce as well. So I have plenty of experience as well as academic experience, professional experience as well.
That's nice. And where did you go to school?
I went to Brooklyn College, actually. So I'm a CUNY all the way.
Nice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Brooklyn College.
Wow, that's nice. So since you said you have plenty of experience in different types of aspects of marketing, what was the marketing experience you felt like, or which corporation brought you the most experience overall?
So the way it worked with me was that every company that I worked for gave me more and more experience. So the way it works in the fashion industry is that you can go from one company to another, and they're going to hire you based on what you what you're capable of doing more than the exact experience. So I knew A, and they said, well, if you could do A, then you can do B, okay? And you could do B, you could do C. So throughout my career, I was gaining more and more experience. But if you want to say, if I had to choose one right now, I'd say Polo Jeans, where I worked for Polo, where I was the head of production and decided how many pairs of jeans a company is going to make. And that, of course, helped me to teach the supply chain class, which is what I teach now, because that was all supply chain. At the time when I was teaching it, there was no such thing. They didn't call it supply chain. I didn't even know it was called supply chain until I got here, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's nice. So, I mean, I guess looking back on that diverse career that you said, or that you're elaborating on, what do you believe are the essentials that marketing, not only leaders in the corporate world, but in any industry should be applying now more than ever?
So data is probably the main thing. Back then, data was just beginning to be an important part of any kind of strategy or any kind of marketing research. So data is even more important now. We're inundated with so much data. So the thing is to analyze the data and to be able to spot opportunities with this data.
In terms of data, what about the data do you feel now more than ever has been most applicable to the field of marketing, like in terms of progress?
The point of data is to find opportunities, okay? And we talk about this in marketing all the time. Why do they put peanut butter next to the bananas at Target? Okay, because we know that peanut butter and bananas go together, right? So this is the data. Now you could say it's everyone knows this, right? But people don't know until you analyze the data. So really, the whole idea of data is to find opportunities that you would normally have.
With data, how do you try to take different risks? Because if you see that something's working all the time with data, how do you decide, okay, well, let's steer away from that and take the risk that could possibly be detrimental?
So I don't fully understand the question, because if something's working, why would you stop?
So then how do you decide to be creative and try something new, take a risk?
Well, so the thing is, so the risk that you're taking is you might not have so much data in reference to a particular aspect. But what I always used to tell my students, and even in work, numbers don't lie, but you can make them say anything you want them to say. So if you could see some kind of connection, take a chance, because what is the harm in taking a chance on putting something on sale, for example? What is the harm in charging a little higher price? There's really no harm, because 2 days later you can just drop it, because you can analyze that data and say, something's not working. Okay, that's the great thing about what we have now, is that you can make changes so quickly that nothing will be detrimental. Real detrimental, unless you do something really crazy, which I have some stories for that as well.
So how do you feel that marketing research should adapt to the new type of campaigns that data will be unlocking for certain companies? Because I believe that, right, in order to execute strategy, optimizing the right campaign for the right, like you said, how different companies are aligning products together.
Right.
What are some tips that you feel that you have seen that companies should be doing better in, or from your experience, or what do you believe are the best strategies that some people should be taking?
Okay, so I have a couple of great stories for this. As a matter of fact, I did a presentation on market research for the company that I have. Okay, I'm the CEO of a company called Brooklyn Body Gear, which is an apparel company, a men's apparel company. It started off with underwear, okay, which is something that I'm doing now. I'm actually re-strategizing. So I spent maybe 4 years doing market research. Now, what kind of market research did I do? I had to figure out, now because I started with men's underwear, what kind of fabrics? What's the spec going to be like? Okay, what colors? Who's my demographic? Okay, so how did I do it? You're going to laugh when I tell you this. I used to go to people and say, what underwear are you wearing? And I know it sounds so funny to say, but if you're saying it in a nice way, they would say the same thing like you. They'd just start laughing and say, well, I'm wearing cotton. And then I do the research on that by saying, is this guy 40 years old or is he 20 years old? And based on that, I was able to figure out exactly what kind of fabrication for the demographic that I was using. The same thing with colors. I would ask, what color are you wearing? Okay, and based on that kind of research, then I went deeper and pulled numbers from Statistica to figure out exactly what colors do they match what I've seen on the street, so to speak.
So customer segmentation is basically what you're trying to say.
That's exactly, well, customer segmentation for a particular demographic. I had to still start with the strategy, which is, who's my demographic going to be? Do I want 60-year-olds or do I want 20-year-olds? That's a totally different market segment, okay? And then you have to figure out, well, what about a 30-year-old? Is a 30 closer to 20 or is a 30 closer to 40? And because I'm very, very analytical and because I have this strategy background, I never stopped. So this was the thing. You could have stopped after 2 months and say, okay, I got my numbers. I got my answers. I just kept going and kept going and kept going, which is why when I actually put in production, it actually worked out exactly what I was looking for up to a point.
How did you forecast your company in terms of planning? Like, how did you know that the steps that you were taking were the right ones to, according to your data and according to your research, were going to benefit you in the future?
So you have to trust your research and you have to trust yourself, okay? And the great thing about the forecast that I did was also because of all the experience that I've had. Remember, I started a fashion company because I was in the fashion industry. I knew how to forecast, so I did my own forecasting. I also know what my core competencies are and know that the stuff that I didn't know how to do, I farmed it out to someone else. But how did I know? I knew that there are certain, how do you say this? So, I mean, in reference to sizes, I mean, I'll give you an example for sizes. Small, medium, large, extra large, okay? The general way of doing sizes anyway is 1, 2, 2, 1. Okay, stands for one small, 2 mediums, 2 larges, 1 extra large, like a bell curve, right? So you're going to start with that basic plan, right? And now, based on that, what about the colorways? How many different colors, and how do you want to do the 1, 2, 2, 1 in reference to the colors? Okay, and the truth is, the first time you're planning, and the first time you're forecasting, it's really a shot in the dark. It's the second time that was always my worry, because that's where you're going to fill in the holes in your sizes, as well as adding new colors, adding new styles. So the first time I did this was only 3 bodies, as we call bodies, which is briefs, boxer briefs and trunks with the 3 bodies, and only 4 colors. My next order is going to be 8 colors, right? With maybe boxers with a different material. So I always used to tell people, I'm not worried about the first order. I'm worried about the second order, because the second order is not going to be 1,500 pieces. The second order is going to be 50,000 pieces. That is what you're asking, which is how you're not going to make a mistake on the second order.
Yeah. Can you give us a chronological timeline in terms of your progress for your company?
So because I was doing all the research at the beginning and I was a professor at the time, so I had 3 jobs at the time, starting Brooklyn Body Gear, or doing the market research for Brooklyn Body Gear.
What year is this?
2015. 2015, it was a while back. I was also working in Macy's, okay? And I was an adjunct at the time as a professor. So I was doing all this research all at the same time. I did all the research, then I found a supplier. I had to really interview the supplier. I had to figure out the spec. If I can't really talk to you about this, but I can talk to you about this. You know that everything fits differently. You put on a pair of jeans, a pair of Levi's fits differently than a pair of Old Navy, a pair of Banana Republic. Even if it's the same size, color, and inseam, but it's going to fit differently. So you have to figure out the spec, what they call the spec, right? Which is the way that you want your underwear to fit. So I had to do all of that. Then I had to figure out the fabrication, and then of course the samples go back and forth. There were a lot of mistakes on the samples. Now think about it. I was importing it from China, and there is cultural barriers. There is language barriers. So not everything worked out the way you wanted it. Also, sizes are different in Asia than they are in America.
What were the reviews like for your first batch that you?
Oh, my reviews are amazing. I mean, everybody that's tried it said they've never felt a better pair ever. And I still can't believe it. I still can't believe that they loved it as much as they did.
Yeah, because we have the tendency to believe that our products are better than anticipated, right? Like we have like this super, egotistical sort of mindset where it's like, yeah, I did the research, like, yeah, I know everything about this, and then like it's almost like going into a test, like, yeah, I aced that, like I got an 100, and then like you get you get the feedback, and it's not really what you expected, and maybe like somebody didn't like it, So like, how would you handle like the criticism like during the process, or even like the way that you treated yourself during the process? Because that's also
okay. So the thing is, I never, and this is something about me. Even though I'm very popular here, but I really don't have an ego. I'm very, very humble, and I'm very, very modest about that. I don't go around and say I'm the best professor ever, except in class maybe, but that's about it. But I don't tell anyone out loud. Okay, and it's the same thing with in my business. I never planned to say I'm going to be the best underwear. I never thought about that. I said I'm going to do the research and see what happens. When it comes to marketing, and I think this is really the main thing, you can't fall in love with your product. You can't fall in love with your company. You can have a connection, but you have to understand that, let's take a step back and always be objective. Okay. If you can have a passion about it. We're not saying don't have a passion, but you have to understand that if it doesn't work, we're going to change. Okay. My feedback was always great, so there was no reason to change. And I didn't pat myself on the back and say, wow, I picked the perfect spec. I spent all this time marketing and doing my market research, and it was great throwing underwear at people. The fact is, if it didn't work, I was going to go back to China and say, okay, let's change the spec. It's totally fine.
Back to the drawing board, right?
That's it. And I didn't have to do that, which was great. But my market research, for my next products, I did the exact same thing, which is I have to try new products, see what I like, see what I think other people like before I go with that.
How do you navigate between working for yourself as a CEO and then working for other people, like for Polo Jean? How do you see like different skills that work as being a CEO and then working for other people?
The main skill is empowerment. Okay. If you have to figure out who your boss is going to be. Okay. Is your boss going to empower you to make decisions? Because the best bosses are the ones that really only have to manage you. They don't tell you what to do. And I think that is really the common denominator. Okay. You have to realize how you like to be managed. And as a CEO, you have to manage the way you would love to be managed. So I love the fact that at Polo and at Liz Claiborne, when I worked there, not at Lord & Taylor, because that was right after school. So, and I guess Jeans, they gave me, carte blanche to do what I wanted, which is great, because then you sink or swim, right? And being empowered makes you more creative and gives you an opportunity to show what you can really do. And at least you can pat yourself on the back when you do a great job. So I think the idea is understand who you want to work for and what kind of boss you want to be to others. And that's I think the common denominator. No one wants to work for someone that's going to micromanage them. And if your boss is micromanaging you, then there's a problem with his management style. He should probably take my organizational behavior class. And
maybe he should enroll.
Yeah, he should definitely enroll in my class. That's for sure.
So do you also mind telling us a little bit more on the difference between the work culture as being a CEO and then at, let's say, Polo Jeans? Does it feel more intimate? Does it feel more like digital, remote? How does it work with you? Setting your own rules and your own boundaries for yourself.
As CEO?
As both.
Okay,
yeah.
So what I realized is it was really very similar, because everything that I learned was the way I wanted to be. And I wasn't going to work for a company that didn't allow me to A, to shine, and B, to learn. Okay, because as I kept going throughout my career, I needed to learn more. Okay, and I'll say this, and maybe it's being a little vulnerable. When I was younger, I worked in the family business. Okay, and they were horrible. They were horrible to me. Okay, because they didn't want me to learn anything. There was, obviously family politics. Maybe there's a cousin that they wanted to be in the company instead of me. So so because I learned that, and I said, this is not the way I want to be. And I talk about this in my class about, one thing I learned about working in the family business is what not to do as a CEO. Okay. So, and what I learned when I was in real companies, I don't consider my family business anything that was real, even though it was a successful company up to a point. What I learned is that the people actually know how to manage. Okay. And I worked for people that were very good managers. And I think it's really about being empowered. And the culture where I worked was always a great culture, which was a culture of laissez-faire. Do your job. Do that. This is what you're supposed to be doing. We expect it to be done. And you don't have to follow up. There's no reason to follow up. If you have to follow up on someone, I can't even understand that.
So from a student to an entrepreneur to someone who's in the work field and someone who's experienced several different kinds of aspects to business, family business, right? You're talking to me about all this. So how do you feel that you're empowering your students in your lectures? Or how are you taking that approach to improving the way marketing is viewed in the world?
Okay, so in reference to what I do in the classroom, anyone's ever taken my class, they know they're empowered in my class. Okay, Sophia, who's here, if I can actually say that, she, I tell them, you decide when the tests are. Okay, you decide when this project is due, when that project is due, and just something as small as that, you could tell that no one's ever empowered the students, because the professors say, this is due on this day, and that's it. Figure it out yourself. So the empowerment is, I try to treat my students as I'm the manager, you work for me, but you're really vice presidents of a company and I'm the CEO. Okay, so I give them the power to do what they need to do. There's a group project, I let them do the group project, and there's really very little for me to do, because I just have to make sure everything works. And that is the whole point. Remember, if I'm involved, there's something's bad is happening. Okay, and this is exactly what I tell the students. I said, if I have to get involved in this, there's going to be trouble. Okay, because you should be able to do it yourself. You're adults. And that is the whole point about being empowered. If you're micromanaging even your students, we're in college. This is not fifth grade. So, and even in the couple of high school classes that I teach, which I teach college classes to some high school students, and I do the exact same thing, which is you decide, you make the decisions. I'm not the boss in the class. And I think that maybe that's why people like me. Maybe that's why they feel that I learned so much from the class, because I learned what I need to do in my own career.
Going off on you teaching the students and you being able to meet all these new different people through that experience, what is something valuable that you think you have learned from the students?
Oh, there's an expression that you learn a lot from your teachers, but you learn more from your students. And what I've learned from them is, and this is the great thing about CUNY. Okay, one great thing about CUNY is the diversity. Okay, so I learned so much from everybody's background and everybody's culture. And that, of course, helps me in reference to marketing and strategy, because remember, you have to know that everybody is different all over the world. And just because they live in America doesn't mean you're going to market everyone the exact same way. And I think that's really what I've learned from the students.
Like that says a lot about the way, I feel like that your character speaks for itself right here, because it's the empowerment aspect. I feel like it's what's lacking in the world. When I approach my employees at work and I try to teach them that they can take some initiative, it's almost like they get surprised when I even bring that up, because of, I feel like a system that has sort of like walked you through everything, and the walking with you, it's very great in terms of guidance and mentorship, but in terms of progress and taking initiative, taking risks, maybe starting your own business, it's scary, and they take away the confidence that you should be having within yourself based off the battles that you've been through, based off the lessons that you've learned. What are some ways that you feel like you as a professor have embodied those things, and like you don't even have to mention it in the classroom, it's something that you feel like your students feel with you, like as a culture that you've built? How do you approach not only just mentorship, but also how do you kind of involve the different psychological aspects of marketing at the same time?
I'll say so. So you're right. It is very surprising, and they are very they're not used to being empowered. And like you said, that is exactly what's missing, not only in the college culture, but like you said, in a work environment as well. Sometimes it's missing. Even if it's your first job out of school, how you want to be walked up to a certain point, no different than teaching your kid how to ride a bicycle, right? Eventually you have to let go of the seat, okay, and let them go on their own. And I think that is what's missing. And how do I do it in class? I tell them from the first day of class, okay? There's time management, okay? If something is due, you're going to decide when it's due. And I'm giving you the opportunity to decide based on your own schedule. It doesn't matter to me when it's due, okay? It really doesn't matter to me. So, but you see, their faces are like, oh. And it's so funny because once in a while I'll say, guys, you decide on your own, and I'm going to go get a coffee. And you see they're looking at each other. What do you mean we have to decide when a test is? It's like, what do I care? You want it in May? It's February. You want the test in May? I'll give it to you in May. It doesn't matter to me that they can't. And I think that is exactly what you said. This is what's lacking. They're not giving you the tools to say, run on your own. And I think this is about resourcefulness as well. Okay. How was I able to start? And I started 3 companies. This is my 3rd company that I started. Okay. Brooklyn Body Gear. It's about resourcefulness. How can you be resourceful if no one gives you the empowerment to be resourceful? That is really the idea.
They want us to have the answers, but they don't give us the tools to help us.
To help you come up with an answer. That's exactly it. That is exactly it. And I can give you another example. So Brooklyn Body Gear, we had to come up with a logo. Okay, it took 6 months to come up with a logo. Okay, I had an idea in my head. So it's almost like, you know how these musicians have a song in their head and they have to turn it into like, you know,
a piano piece,
right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, I had a vision in my head. Okay, the name of the company is Brooklyn Body Gear, and my idea of a logo was a B inside of a B, 2 B's. Okay, that was my vision. I took that vision and I went to graphic designers and I said, take this and do something with it, with this idea. I had graphic designers say, it's impossible. I'm not doing anything. I said, you're the graphic designer. What do you mean? What do you mean? Impossible? Yep, it's impossible. You can't put a B inside of a B. And I said, what? And then I found some guy, great guy. His name is Travis. And he said, okay, I'll do it. And he ran with it. I gave him the idea, okay? Empowered him to just make it himself, okay? And took 6 months. We went back and forth, but it was more like, Travis, figure this out. Okay, figure out my idea in my head. It's almost like, let's come up with a song. It sounds like do. Oh, here it is. And it took 6 months. It's now trademarked. He has a trademark logo for Brooklyn Body Gear that's under his name. And this is about being empowered. And he came up with the idea. I said, well, you came up exactly with what I was looking for. And that is, once you tell them, make this look like this or whatever, what do you have that person for then? You could do it yourself.
So going back to your career as a whole, what is something that you think you wish you could have done differently or you would have known back then? Where it's like, if I could have went to myself in 2015 and said, this would have been useful to know, or maybe try this instead. Are there any kind of guiding lights that you wish you could have told yourself?
Okay, well, I regret very little in life. But I do regret this. And I am going to say this, okay? I only recently got my MBA. Okay, I got my MBA at Baruch. And I just graduated 2 years ago. I know it's funny to say this, but I was a professor and student at the same time. Okay? I didn't know that I was the only one like that. And how did I even know I was the only one? Because our turnstiles with our swiping card never works half the time. Okay, I think it only works if you curse at it. Okay, so I swipe my student card. It didn't work. So I pull out my faculty one, and security says, "What do you have, student faculty?" I said, "What am I, the only one?" He goes, "Yes, no one has student and faculty card." I said, "Wow, they hired me full time. I'm a professor and student at the same time. So what do I?" And I just graduated in 2022. Okay, and the problem with that is my professors were my bosses, so I have to get an A, because if I get a C, they're going to say, "We hired this guy, and he can't even do well in school."
It's a goofball.
Exactly. So what do I regret? Not going to grad school a lot sooner.
What made you decide to do that?
What made me decide to go to grad school? I will tell you. It was really on a whim, because I was teaching another CUNY, and when they gave me a full-time position, they paid that. One of the benefits, if you want to call it, is continuing education. You get 6 credits a semester. So I said, 6 credits a semester, I'll go for my MBA. I'll go for my MBA, and I'll go to a CUNY, and it's 6 credits a semester. That's all I can probably handle is 2 classes anyway. And I went to the meet and greet, whatever the open house that they have here. And I'm telling you, I was teaching business communications, and this presentation that she gave, it was like, I'm in. I couldn't believe it, because I had to take a GRE at the time. And I'm thinking, I can't take a standardized test. I don't want to even tell you guys what I got on my SAT. So I think, I don't even want to tell you guys. I mean, everyone knows. I mean, I have, whatever. Anyway. So I take a GRE, and she's up there making this presentation. Her name was Rebecca Watts. She was the head of the admissions. And I said, I gotta take a GRE now. But she convinced me to come to Baruch. And I took the test, and I got in, really just by this much, really by a dot. I got in. And when I got here, it was really great. I met all these great professors, and right away I said, this is really, really where I want to be, because these guys are just so smart. I mean, we really have the best professors here. We really do. That's what made me come here. And I tell everyone, okay, maybe undergrad is not the best here, which is true. I'm not going to lie. It's sometimes very difficult. It's very, very competitive. I see what the students go through. Grad school is totally different. It was a joy. And I'm always going to say that. I'm always going to say how Baruch was a joy in grad school.
So you talked a lot about what made you come here, but what made you decide to stay here and keep pursuing your businesses here in New York?
In New York? Oh boy. Listen, I have family here. My background is from Syria. I'm a Syrian Jewish guy from Syria. So we're very close knit family. Families are close knit, and the community lives in Brooklyn, and that's where. So it's really, I have nephews and nieces, and I'm now a great uncle for two nephews. So imagine my sister's a grandmother. It's crazy. Okay, but the thing is, she was like this high when I remember. Anyway, the point is, that's why I'm here. That's why I stayed in New York. I'm not saying I'm necessarily going to stay. A lot of things are happening in New York. We know what's going on with the taxes. So, but this is why I'm in New York.
No, that's great.
And the name of the company is Brooklyn Body Gear. I can't do Brooklyn Body Gear in Texas.
Los Angeles, yeah.
It's the best place to actually begin something. I agree.
Absolutely. I mean, New York is the center of the universe.
And you were talking a lot about your family. Who would you say has been your emotional support system throughout this whole thing?
Oh boy. My emotional support. Oh boy. Maybe that's the part we should cut out. Anyway, listen, my family they're different than I am. Let's just say that, okay? They're different than I am, okay? They, education to them was much different. I have the Syrian background is, there's a lot of that culture of business only, and you don't have to know anything. It's just buying and selling, right? You buy this for one price, you sell it for another price, okay? That is their idea. You don't have to go to school for that, okay? So they had a different idea about education. And my theory is, okay, I understand about buying and selling, but there's a lot more than that, okay, to understand it.
So I guess now that we've covered most of your business and career, I would love to just ask you a question about what is more like personal, like life trajectory in terms of like long-term like goals from here on out.
Okay.
So I guess one of my questions would be, what is your aim for the rest of your life?
Rest of my life.
It's a long time.
Oh boy. Inshallah, it's a long time, right? As we say. Um,
Give me a ballpark, like an aim of where do you feel like you're going to be in the next 5 years?
okay, so it's very simple. I love teaching, and that is really the idea. I mean, when I first went into the classroom for the first time, when they gave me the position to teach marketing in a CUNY school at 8 p.m. I was teaching at 8 p.m. my first class. It was 8:10 to 9:40, and it was in a the 8 o'clock students are the ones that work all day, and you have to be very, very engaging. They taught me how to be engaging, but I remember the first day, and I'm going to say this to you. The first day, I gave them the syllabus, okay, and I put on a video about what makes. Maybe you've seen it. It was a TED Talk video about why do people share cat videos and not other things, right? It was called Contagion. He wrote a book about what makes things go viral. Okay, if I tell you, after 3 minutes of watching this video, they were throwing stuff at the screen. Okay, they said we're not watching this shit. Okay, and I kept thinking, I love this. This is great. Okay, and I said I'm never going to do anything else. I'm never going back to corporate. Okay, so even though I have my own business, the idea of my own business is just to continue giving back. And that's my whole idea, is that I was in, and this is what I tell all my students all the time, is that I wish I had me when I was younger, okay, which is why I teach, because I give the students things that I never had, because I would have $10 million right now if I had me when I was younger. I would be in a different place if I had me when I was younger. So I try to give back to the students what I never had. And that is why I want to just keep doing this.
When did that switch for you? When did you start being yourself?
When do I stop being myself?
In the context of your statement, as in like, when do you feel like that changed for you in a way, and like you started seeing life in a different light?
I started seeing life in a different light even when I was at Polo. I mean, I was a middle manager, so I had people under me, and I was always teaching them. So I always had this teaching aspect of me, but I never thought I'd ever be a professor. Never. So I always had that about mentoring others. But it was that first day in the classroom. That's when I said, something, this is for me time to give back. And of course, from the first day to where I am now, which is almost 10 years later, a lot, it evolved till I found out that in my head that, something, this is what I want to do. This is all my experience I can give to someone else. And that is what I do, and that is what I plan. And this is another thing that I always want to talk about, is that my greatest strength is the fact that I have all this experience. And that's what separates me from professors or whatever you want to call them that do mostly research. Okay? They've never been in the real world. Okay? What do they do? They haven't been in the real world. So they're only teaching from a book. Okay? Or they're only teaching concepts. Okay? How do you take these concepts and turn it real unless you've actually been in that business? And this is what makes me successful. But at the same time, this is a little different in the education system that we have, is that they'd rather have someone that knows this research, that wrote a bunch of books, wrote in journals that 5 people read, okay, but not real experience that's been in the real world. So of course, this is where what I feel is my strength and core competency.
The greatest asset is the experience.
Absolutely. How can you teach marketing if you've never been in marketing? Okay, because you read a book? I don't get this. And I'm always going to be very frustrated over this.
You're an advocate for that.
Absolutely. I mean, you shouldn't be teaching unless unless you've been there. Okay, you want to teach English? You should have been working for a newspaper first. Okay, and I'm not talking about the college newspaper that you were undergrad and then you went straight to teaching English. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you should have a real job. Okay, and this is what I always talk about. I'm not saying everybody that's done research never had a real job, but if you're spending your time looking in a book, I think that's detrimental to the students. And if you care about education and you care about educating the students, at least give them something they can hold on to. And my greatest, the thing that I love the most is when students go to the supermarket, because I always talk about consumer products in strategy, and they look at the Oreo section and they go, now I understand what Didia meant. Now I understand when he talks about Oreos and why they're on the shelves the way they are, and they have all these different products for different customers, and everyone likes something different, and why they never out of stock because of the supply chain issues that we talk about. And this is real, as opposed to just the concept of the 4 Ps or the concept of segmentation, targeting, and positioning.
It's almost like the lessons that our parents teach us, and we don't learn them until it's too late. And then
until it's too late, which is why I try to give the lessons now. And I tell them, and there's another thing that I tell my students, which is great, is that I only have you for 15 weeks, but you'll always have me, because you can just email me anytime. And I give them my personal email at the end of the semester, because who knows what's going to happen with the Baruch email. Half the time it doesn't work. So text me on, email me on Gmail, and I'll help you at any time you want. I'm here for you. You're stuck with me, is what I tell them. And hopefully they like that aspect, because people have done that.
You also mentioned, and we're talking about success, and I was curious to know, what does success mean to you, and how do you measure it in your job?
Okay, so success for me is never money. Is never about money. Now remember, I teach business classes, and business classes are why do you think I'm wearing green? That's there's only one color when it comes to business, and it's green. But success is measured not by money, because there's even an article, you should always be reading the Wall Street Journal, guys. Always read the Wall Street Journal about business. But there was a great article just this week about how people leaving $200,000 a year jobs for half the salary so they can have better work-life balance. Okay? What's the sense of having the money if you can't spend it? What's the sense of having the money if you can't enjoy it? So it's really about work-life balance. So success is work-life balance. Not working on a Friday, that's success to me. Okay? Having decent hours that I can, I'm training for a half marathon. I do have a social life. I'm a big foodie. That's success for me, that I can go to these restaurants and I don't have to worry. And I can train for this marathon, even though I'm horrible. But this is what success is to me. And that's what I try to tell everyone, is that, don't look at the money now. I mean, look at the money on some level, but understand the long term. Think of your strategy. Think of your strategy. In 10 years from now, is it all about the money? Because your kids are going to forget you if this is what you want. And that, I think, is really what it's about.
Do you live by a quote, if you have one?
Yeah, I do, actually. I do. My quote is, I'd rather die of thirst than drink from the cup of mediocrity. Okay? You can never be mediocre. Okay? Good is the enemy of great. If you've ever heard that, that's Jim Collins wrote that book. Okay? Good is just regular. Anybody could be good. Okay? Good is just, okay, I did good on this test, right? An 80. Good is the enemy of great, because if you only strive for good, you're never going to be great. So mediocrity is what everybody is doing. Okay? And this is what I tell my students. I said, everybody's mediocre. You just have to try a little harder, and you're going to be better than the next guy. Okay? Especially now in our times, people aren't trying so hard. Oh, we have, you don't have to work so hard. There's so many issues when it comes to meritocracy. Probably a better word. And I think that's the idea, is that don't be mediocre. Be the best you could possibly be, and know your core competencies. I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm really horrible at. I can't play basketball. I'm short. Okay? So I know that I can't play LeBron James. Okay? But I know what I'm good at. I'm good at strategy. I'm good at supply chain. In my own company, I don't know how to do any of the analyzing the social media. That's for someone else to do. So you have to know what you're good at as well. And I think that's the key. Everyone thinks they could do everything. I love when I used to hire people for my company. What do you want to do for us? Oh, I can do anything. Right then and there, they're out. Okay? I will never ask them another question. Because if you could do anything, you really do nothing. Right? What are you good at? What are you good at? And that's the key. Okay? I wouldn't have Travis do social media marketing when he's a graphic designer. So know what you're good at. And I think that is the thing. And yes, there are things that if I'm not good at something, I'll give it to someone else. But never be mediocre. Okay? Die instead of being mediocre. That's my quote.
You also talked a lot about work-life balance, and I'm curious as a CEO, because you're not traditionally clocking in and clocking out. It's not like a 9 to 5. How do you find that work-life balance?
It's really difficult, and you're gonna laugh when I tell you this. Also, I made a spreadsheet, okay, with seven columns, right, and 14 rows with a square that represents each hour of the day, and it's sitting there by the week, and I put in exactly when I actually have real stuff to do, which is one color. What's my real stuff? So I teach also at Brooklyn College. So I put Baruch, my schedule at Baruch, my schedule at Brooklyn College. I used to be a personal trainer, which is one of my businesses I used to have. So I actually train senior citizens at one time a week. So I'm putting everything in the schedule. And then when you look at it, you realize I have a lot of free time. So that's how I balance work-life balance. When you say, this is the time I'm going to be working on Brooklyn Body Gear. This is the time I'm going to be running for my training for my half marathon. And that's what Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is for. A lot of empty days, and that's the time I grade papers. This is the time I make tests. So it's really about doing that, because everyone can think they don't have any time until they do that, until they quantify. And that is the key to everything, is quantifying it. Once you quantify your day and your week, you say, holy shit, I got a lot of free time. What the am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm scrolling Instagram. And that is the problem.
Yeah, we all have time. I don't like people that say that they don't have time either, because it's like, you do have time. It's just you have to make time.
What do you do with it?
What do you do with that time? And I know I scroll half the time. I mean, but when am I scrolling? From midnight to 1 a.m. That's when I'm scrolling. When I'm just sitting on the sofa and I want to wind down from the day.
I agree. That makes sense.
What else you got?
I think we're good. You nailed it.
What, really?
Yeah, you really nailed it today. It's good. Can I shake your hand?
Of course you could. Of course you could. You can shake my hand. Of course. You can give me a hug. You can shake my hand.
I'll never wash this hand again.
Really? You thought it was good?
It was great. This is excellent. So thank you, A-Amazers, for being here with us today, and for Professor Didia for expressing his amazing experience.
Thank you.
Such a humble, genuine human being. And yes, Alyssa, would you like to say something?
No, pretty much it. Thank you so much. Thank you for your insights. Very valuable, and I appreciate them a lot. And I'm sure everyone at AMA will too.
Thank you.
Don't drink from the cup of good. Die of thirst to be great. All right?
Don't be
I like
mediocre.
that. Don't be mediocre. Professor Didia got it. All right? So thank you guys, and hope you guys enjoy this episode. Make sure you guys follow us on our socials at AMA at Baruch on Instagram, on X, and follow our Discord. And just stay amazing, everyone. From Alyssa, Professor Didia, Joseph, have a good one.